Let's take a look at a sample reading passage on the AP English Language multiple choice. So here it is in front of me. I always skip these instructions because they're the same. I skip this reminder because I keep my eyes open for not and least and except. And now I'm going to get right to this little italicized blurb at the front. Now this doesn't give me a lot of information, but it says the following passage is excerpted from a book, so it's from this longer work, by Helen Keller, published in 1903. So this is a slightly older source. I'm expecting more antiquated language, and I'm expecting that Helen Keller, who I'm familiar with, will be writing about something related maybe to her own life or to another broader subject. So here I have, let's see, I'm going to scroll down. I see 88 lines. I also see a bunch of these questions. Now I can preview the questions and mark up the passage. Some people like to do that. I don't necessarily think that's going to help me. I see a lot of line references, so I'm going to go right to the passage, and now I'm going to skim read. And I want you to watch me as I do this, because I'm not reading you're not watching me read. You're watching me cut through the passage to find big picture things. So I see most people measure their happiness in terms of physical pleasure, question, blah, 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 or exclamation. Lacking this gift, they would be miserable, blah, blah, blah. I who cannot hear or see have every reason to sit in a corner with folded hands and weep. Wow. And now I'm going to skip to the end of this paragraph. Once I knew the depth where no hope was, and darkness lay on the face of all things, then love came and set my soul free. So people are focused on their material happiness. I'm blind and deaf, so I should have none, but actually I'm happy. That's kind of what I got out of this paragraph. Once I knew only darkness and stillness, now I know hope and joy. So that's a nice structure that helps me set this up. Once I fretted and beat myself, now I rejoice. My life was without past or future. Death, the pessimist would say, etc. Quotes, I'm skipping over all that. Can anyone who has escaped such captivity, who has felt the thrill and glory of freedom, be a pessimist? She asks. If I tried, I could. So she's asking all these questions about this, kind of repeating the same point. Used to be really bad, now things are good. I couldn't check the momentum, etc. Darkness cannot shut me in again. Lots of ellipses, which means that they're excerpting the passage here. Notice I'm focusing on the first and last sentences of the paragraphs. This is kind of helping me get a better sense of the main idea. Once by contact with evil could I have learned to feel by contrast the beauty of truth and love and goodness. It's a mistake to always contemplate the good and ignore the evil, because by making people neglectful, it lets in disaster. There's a dangerous optimism that does this, etc., etc. This is a little faster than I would actually read on the test, but you see what I'm doing. I'm letting go of the details. I'm letting go of the quotes. I don't need them right now. I can get them when I do the individual questions. I know what evil is. Wow, okay. Tell me about it. Once or twice I've wrestled with it, and for a time it felt its chilling touch in my life. So I speak with knowledge. So she's appealing to her own credibility. She's an optimist. More ellipses, more the world is sown with good. 2 generations ago, Carlyle, I don't know who that is, flung forth his gospel of work to the dreamers of the revolution, etc. Endymions, all these references. Notice these notes. I'm going to skip all those. Chaos, the world, all kinds of capital letters. Okay, and then I'm going to focus on the last paragraph. Sometimes that can really give me something substantial. Some have said Carlyle was taking refuge from a hard world by bidding men grind and toil, eyes to the earth, etc., etc. Skip, skip, skip. It is plain what he says, that work, production, okay, all of this. Members of this chamber are practical people, and I know you won't resent some practical advice. When people put their party's fortunes, whatever the party, whatever side of the aisle, before the public good, they court defeat, not only for their country, but for themselves, and they will certainly deserve it. So this is some political or some appeal at the end to crossing the party divides, whatever those are. I can get into the nitty-gritty of this. So you could probably say I skimmed over that too quickly. And now, of course, I'm talking out loud, which I can't do on the test, but I'm talking to myself. I'm interrogating, what is this about? What is it not about? And not trying to overanalyze it. I'm not getting any points for reading. All the points I'm about to earn as I do the questions. So here I go. I see in question 1 about lines 8 through 12. So I can go back there and read that again. Lines 12 through 15. And these line references are really convenient because they give me a structure for what will be my second and much deeper read of the passage. Let's just take an example of a question. Let's take number 2, for example. It says, the writer draws a parallel between herself and sinners in lines 12 through 15 in order to. So notice that this is a question without a question mark. I'm going to convert it into a question. And she draws this in order to, so why does she draw a parallel between herself and sinners? So let's go back and see if we can find why she draws a parallel between herself and sinners. And my line reference is here. So I'll read a few lines above and a few lines below. I'll start here. If I am happy in spite of my deprivations, if my happiness is so deep that it is a faith, so thoughtful that it becomes a philosophy of life, if, in short, I am an optimist, my testimony to the creed of optimism is worth hearing. So she believes in optimism. Notice in my skimming, I kind of missed that point. As sinners stand up in meeting and testify to the goodness of God, so one who is called afflicted may rise up in gladness of conviction and testify to the goodness of life. Once I knew the depth where no hope was, and darkness lay on the face of all things. Then love came and set my soul free. So as sinners stand up in the meeting, so one who is called afflicted may rise up in gladness and testify to the goodness of life. So why does she compare herself to sinners here? I don't know. Sometimes I'd say about half the time I can come up with an answer, and that's useful because then I'm going to go to the answer choices and see what's there and see if I can almost, in a sense, find my answer. So let's just see. Why does she do this? I'm not sure. Does she do it to appeal to readers' experiences with rebounding from adversity? Maybe. Does she do it to encourage readers to attend church meetings and seek relief? Now that's a problem. That's way too literal of an explanation. She's not literally saying in this section right here, you should go to church. She's referencing sinners in a church, but she's not suggesting as a command that they do that. We don't know what her religious view is. C, allude to readers' exposure to God's punishment. Well, that's not really the theme. This is about sinners talking about the goodness of God. She's an optimist talking about the goodness of the world, so that doesn't seem on topic. Then D, engage readers who express themselves with conviction. Maybe. I don't know what that means, so I'll just leave it. And then notice what I'm doing. I'm looking for wrong answers. I'm not looking for right answers. So something could be right. It's not necessarily wrong, so I might leave it. And that's my goal. I'm always looking for wrong answers. Then I go to E, to persuade readers that the origin of happiness lies within sin. So if I sin a lot, then I'll be happy. That's definitely not what she's saying. So notice what they did. A couple of these recycled some of the religious language. They misinterpreted this in an overly literal way. And now it's either A or E. Why does she draw a parallel between herself and the sinners? Does she do it to appeal to readers' experiences with adversity, or engage with readers who express themselves with conviction? I don't see any example of expressing herself with conviction. So I'm going to go with A, and I'm going to move on. And that's really important. I want to make sure that I'm being decisive here. I've got 45 questions. I have these 5 passages to get through. I've got to move quickly to get these right. Let's try another one. Let's say I went to this one here, number 3, actually. In the first 4 sentences of the second paragraph, the primary reason the writer's sentence structure is effective is because it. So why is the author's sentence structure effective? So I'm going to go back up to the passage in the second paragraph here. Once I knew only darkness and stillness, now this. Once I fretted and beat myself, now I rejoice. ... My life was without past or future, death, the pessimist would say, etc. So the sentence structure is this once, now. Once I was this, now I am this. Once I was lost, now I am found. So what's the effectiveness of this? Well, it does set up a nice contrast. It breaks down complex ideas with short sentences. That seems to make sense to me. They seem short. Repeats words to produce a lyrical tone. Maybe. Employs first-person narration to draw comparison. Maybe. Indicates the sequence of events with clarity. Maybe. Emphasizes the contrast between the writer's past and present. Maybe. Okay, now I'm in trouble. I couldn't eliminate any of the choices, so I need to do a deeper read. This is why I did a kind of a quicker read originally, was to set up something that I can use as a more specific and more intentional reading later. So the first 4 sentences of the second paragraph, the writer's sentence structure is effective because it. So why is this effective? Once I knew only darkness and stillness, Now I know hope and joy. Once I fretted and beat myself against the wall that shut me in. Now I rejoice in the consciousness that I can think, act, and attain heaven. Why is this effective? Well, I noticed this last one's the sentence is pretty long. So it's not that it's so short. Repeats words. It's only repeating the initial phrases. So once now. That's not really setting up a kind of a poem here. Employs first person narration to draw comparisons. Is that what really sets this off? Or is it this once and now thing, right? With this really, it's about contrast. So, and it's not about sequence of events. So now I can see it more clearly. It's E. So this is really, really important. I want you to know this, that as you're going through these reading multiple choice questions, it's perfectly natural to, let's say, eliminate all 5 choices or eliminate none. It's perfectly natural to be stuck between 2 choices. The key is that you need to be decisive. You need to take control of the whole testing environment and pick the best answer you can and move on.